How's it going, everyone? It's me, Lone, and welcome to my review of System Shock. System Shock is a complete remake of the original title from 1994, and it's been one that I've had my eye on for a very, very long time. The remake was announced in 2015, and I pledged to support the game on Kickstarter as soon as I was able. Even though I never played the original System Shock, the respect I have for the franchise is immense. I am acutely aware of the impact and legacy that System Shock has had on the immersive sim genre, particularly on games like BioShock, Prey, and Dishonored, all of which have a special place in my heart. So, to see it rebooted as a remake which tries to stay faithful to the original made me very excited, and to be honest, it's been kind of surreal playing it for the past week. Now, full transparency, I was provided a code for review purposes by the team at PlayOn ANZ, and I must say, I am definitely a little biased when it comes to this game. Please keep that in mind when watching this review. Also, this review will be as spoiler-free as possible. With that out of the way, here is my review of System Shock by Nightdive Studios. Let's start with the story. In System Shock, you play as a nameless hacker who was caught by the Tri-Optimum Corporation after attempting to hack into the company's database. Your character is taken to Citadel Station, a space station owned by Tri-Optimum, which orbits the planet of Saturn. Once on board, the hacker speaks with Edward Diego, a Tri-Optimum executive. In exchange for a medical-grade neural implant, Diego convinces your character to hack into Citadel and remove the ethical constraints of Shodan, the artificial intelligence which supports the station's computer network. However, immediately after this, the hacker is put to sleep and wakes up later, only to discover that the station is now in complete control of Shodan, who has gone off the rails a little bit. You, playing as the hacker, then sets off to stop the psychotic Shodan and its menacing plans. Though this won't be easy, Shodan has turned the crew of Citadel Station into an army of mutants and cyborgs, and they'll attempt to stop you at every single damn turn. I'll stop explaining things there, but what I will say is that I really enjoyed System Shock's story. From my understanding, it stays fairly faithful to the original title, with some changes here and there, but nothing too drastic. Exploring Citadel Station under the constant eye of Shodan was fun, albeit a little bit unsettling. Shodan will frequently communicate with you, and as it does, you learn more about the AI, what makes it tick, and its menacing plans. There are also other characters on the station who reach out to you and attempt to help you take down Shodan. Through these communications, in addition to emails and audio logs you can find throughout the game, you learn pieces of what Shodan got up to while your character was asleep and exactly what it did to the station's inhabitants. You also learn a little bit about life on Citadel before Shodan was hacked into, and ultimately, the mental and emotional impact that Shodan's actions has had on the station staff, many of whom volunteered to take this mission and genuinely tried their best to stop Shodan themselves. I felt bad for a lot of them while listening to their stories, but at the same time, I was also thankful that they helped pave the path for me to take down Shodan myself. The story was very much engrossing and immersed me into the world, though I will say, without giving away too much, the ending was a little bit anticlimactic for me. I understand why a lot of people love the open-ended nature of it, and it does tease future events, but I was hoping for a little more closure and meat to the ending. Regardless, the story is still iconic, and I think both old and new players of System Shock will enjoy it. Next up, graphics and performance. To have a proper discussion about System Shock's visuals, we must first discuss the history behind the game's development. The remake was first being built in Unity, but then moved to Unreal Engine 4. Now, this move caused a little bit of controversy, to say the least. On the screen, you are seeing a helpful comparison of the game within both engines thanks to YouTuber Saiku1, which is linked in the description below. Many people in the comments seem to prefer the Unity version, which emphasized a more washed out look and smoky atmosphere that added to the creepiness and moodiness of the game. The current Unreal version, on the other hand, goes for a more colorful and slightly stylized look, if you will, which these same players believe looks worse and less faithful to the original game. So ultimately, there are two questions which need to be answered here. One, does the 2023 Unreal Engine version look good? And two, how faithful does it stay to the original game? Answers to these questions are ultimately going to come down to your personal opinion. So, here is mine. First of all, I believe the current version looks great. This is indeed a fully fledged remake in almost every conceivable way, with brand new HD visuals, an improved user interface, a wider color palette, and updated lighting, character designs, animations, and sounds. However, I've constantly admitted in the past publicly that I very much like games that have a more saturated, colorful look. That has just always been my preference. So when I've been playing the System Shock remake, I've thoroughly enjoyed how much the colors pop on the screen. But I will say, often the lighting is a little flat or static, and many areas look too dark, to the stage where I'm genuinely struggling to see. Now, there is a head-mounted torch and eventually night vision to help with this, but these also use energy and I feel should only have been necessary in certain locations, not throughout the entirety of the map. So, when it comes to the second question, I think it's undeniable that the 2017 Unity version is probably more faithful to the original. It looks way more creepy and fitting to the game's story and setting. And that's not just because of the increased realism, reduced vibrance, and smarter use of lighting, but even the enemies look more horrifying. But we also need to be fair here. There were valid reasons as to why Nightdive moved from Unity to Unreal Engine. Game director Jason Fader told Polygon that, quote, "Unity is not a great engine to use if you want to make an FPS on console," end quote. And Nightdive have committed to this game releasing across PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series. So, sticking with Unity might have compromised that, and I respect that decision. The devs at Nightdive also had way more experience with Unreal than on Unity, which meant spending less time training devs on a different engine and helping ensure internal timelines were hit. Plus, and I think most importantly, the decision also came down to performance issues. Nightdive believed that Unreal Engine would help them hit their performance targets, particularly on consoles, and having spent almost 30 hours playing the game, it has run phenomenally for me. Frame rates are smooth, and I did not have one single crash in my entire playthrough. There were definitely bugs, and I'll speak to those later in this review, but God, it felt good playing a game that ran this well. Now keep in mind, I'm playing on a PC using an RTX 3090, but we've also seen titles recently not being able to maintain stable frame rates even on this kind of modern hardware. So if the move to Unreal Engine helped ensure that System Shock achieved this, I am 100% for the move. Plus there's also a decent suite of customizable graphics settings to boot, including DLSS. Though compared to some other games out there, it's arguably more on the limited side, but it should still be satisfactory for most players. Now, onto gameplay. As I alluded to before, in System Shock you'll be making your way through Citadel, a large convoluted space station with 10 different levels. In addition to combating enemies, which we'll chat about in a second, you'll need to put your exploration hat on and get ready to solve many puzzles in order to progress. The game requires you to think. You won't simply be given a quest marker and set on your way. You need to make sure you discover every nook and cranny, destroy every security camera, read every email, listen to every audio log, obtain every access card, solve every junction box, and keep your eyes and ears out for any potential clues. That will be the only way to figure out on your own what you need to do next. It's hard to be more specific than that without giving away spoilers, but the beauty of System Shock is its emergent gameplay. The game does not handhold you. It's designed in such a way to provide you with just enough to work out how to unlock doors, disable force fields, open hidden rooms, and complete the next task, without making things a little too obvious. This will absolutely be a game that some players will want to read for a guide online, but for those of you who are willing to go about it solo, I'm certain that you'll be charmed by its level design and gameplay. Though there may be some backtracking and reading through emails again to see if you missed anything, it is so damn satisfying when you work out what you need to do without any external help. But if you do want a little bit of assistance, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, you can customize the game's difficulty across combat, missions, cyberspace, and puzzles, with easy, medium, and hard difficulties. Turning missions to easy, for instance, will provide you with waypoints to help you navigate throughout Citadel Station, which makes the game a lot more accessible. On the other hand, if you're a sucker for punishment, you can set the difficulty to hard, which will give you much tougher enemies and even a 5-hour timer to stop Showdown. Brutal. But no matter what you set the difficulty to, you'll still want to explore Citadel Station as much as possible, and you'll be rewarded in many ways for doing so. The game has a range of different weapons that you can acquire, from pistols to shotguns and energy weapons, which can also be upgraded at mod kit stations located throughout Citadel. To be able to purchase these mods, in addition to ammo and consumables, you'll need to pick up junk and then vaporize and recycle that junk in order to obtain tri-credits, which serves as the game's primary currency. I will admit, this did become fairly tedious at times. Throughout the game's opening levels in particular, when inventory space is much more available, you'll need to recycle a lot of items in order to be able to afford everything you want later on in the game. If you don't do this enough initially, you will be punished when your inventory is filled with guns and you just can't collect much more junk, especially when you need to run back to recycle stations on earlier levels. Personally, I do wish there was a little bit more inventory space, especially because it meant I couldn't collect guns when I found them, and since some guns are only available in a handful of locations, I couldn't ever be certain that I'd find that gun type again unless I dumped as many items as I could and grabbed it then and there. There is a cargo chute which allows you to store some items and access them between levels, but these barely hold anything. But I am sure this is one of those instances of the game staying true to the original, so I understand it. System Shock isn't meant to be an easy game, and inventory management is part of the experience. The other aspect of System Shock which I enjoyed immensely are the different mods which you can find and attach to your player. From night vision to shields and even friggin' turbo boots, these modifications to your neural interface added another layer of depth to the game, and I enjoyed being able to discover more areas and do more things that just weren't possible or too difficult otherwise. Each mod can be later upgraded with better versions too, so you really are incentivized to completely explore each area. Keep in mind though that when these mods are active, they will drain from your energy reserves, which the Spark Beam sidearm, one of your main weapons in the game, uses as ammunition. And for me, since I often like to use this sidearm as a way to preserve ammo for my other weapons for harder fights, I did have to be careful when I activated these mods. But I also enjoyed this too. You have to be smart and only turn on what you need when you need it. Sure, it's definitely fun to leave your turbo boots on all the time, but that might not exactly be the best idea. Though there are charging stations located throughout Citadel Station which allow you to recharge your energy in a near instant, so these are the times where you can go crazy with your mods and your Spark Beam sidearm. And now for the exciting part, combat. As you make your way through Citadel, there are a range of enemies which Shodan will send your way that you'll need to take down. From mutants to a vast array of cyborgs and robots, these enemies will keep you on your toes, and if you're not careful, they will wreck you. I played on normal difficulty and often saw my health bar and character going down very quickly. Now I'll admit, I'm not the best gamer or shooter out there, but I think it's fair to say that System Shock leans to being more of a slightly difficult game. You cannot just run and gun. You need to maintain your inventory carefully, pick the right guns, take cover when necessary, and be accurate with your shots. And to be fair, this is the game's charm. And many of the game's weapons have different ammunition types or shooting modes that will assist you here too. And I enjoyed figuring out which combinations worked best against different enemies, as they can take less or more damage depending upon what ammo type or mode you are using. This applies equally to the explosives available in the game. For instance, gas grenades are effective against biological enemies, whereas EMPs will help you slow down cyborgs and robots. The game has a surprisingly vast array of enemies too, with different methods of attacking you, and I enjoyed discovering what each new level had to offer, even though I might have got a little annoyed sometimes when I died. If you do get hit though, medi patches can heal you up but work very slowly and take some time to apply, so you do need to be careful or try to find some more first aid kits, which heal you instantly but also take even longer to apply. Other consumables can help you out in combat too, whether by making you more resilient to pain, helping your reflexes, and so on. So again, there is a nice level of strategy to the combat in System Shock, and if you really want, you can save scum using quick saves, though I'm sure some people are going to look down on that. And there are restoration machines that can be activated in the event that you do die, which revive you and restore some of your health. What I absolutely loved about that mechanic too is that on levels that you don't activate these machines and happen to die, you will literally get a game over screen and need to reload a previous save. This was fantastically evil. But now, let's talk about cyberspace. A returning feature from the first game, throughout Citadel Station you will need to access terminals which allow you to enter cyberspace, a digital wireframe 3D realm which houses and represents the aggregate of all data and communications within Citadel's computer network. Once you enter cyberspace, you are effectively manning a quote-unquote spaceship and need to shoot down Shodan security programs and avoid mines in order to progress to the next area. Eventually, you'll come across nodes which need to be destroyed in order to activate something in the physical map, such as by opening a door or disabling a force field. Compared to the original, cyberspace is vastly improved. It looks way better in terms of visuals, the sound effects and music are great, and the combat is pretty smooth. Though I will say, I can't say I ever had a lot of fun within cyberspace. The combat is pretty one-dimensional and is really only a feature they needed to bring back in order to stay faithful to the original. Though at least each cyberspace terminal tries to offer something different in terms of level design and enemies in order to increase the difficulty, and you're not spending all that long in cyberspace each time, maybe a few minutes or so. Ultimately, I think existing fans of System Shock will be enjoying cyberspace the most, just because of how more enjoyable and less disorientating it is compared to the original. But I am sure there will be others out there that don't really enjoy the mechanic and just want to get out as quickly as possible. Your mileage may vary. This is a good time to talk about the game's controls too. Now, even though I play on a PC, I do like to sit back in my chair and use a controller when I game. But I advise against this in System Shock. Even though it technically works, it just feels too clunky and slow, particularly when it comes to the user interface. Watching that cursor slowly move across the screen made inventory management, placing map markers, and other tasks very frustrating. As soon as I swapped to mouse and keyboard, this is where the game truly opened up for me and became immensely more enjoyable. The menus and interface were just much quicker and easier to maneuver through, and I was able to appreciate a lot of the clear improvements that had been made over the original. Though it's not perfect and can still be a little clunky at times, it does get the job done. However, that is not an answer for those of you who will be playing on console. So I do hope that Nightdive Studios introduces improvements here through patches. When it comes to audio, as you would hope for a proper remake, System Shock has all new sounds and music, and all around I think Nightdive did a great job. The weapons and various spaceship devices like controls, cameras and force fields all sound cool, the music is enjoyable with its retro cyberpunky feel, and the voice actors did a solid job. Heck, they even brought back the original voice actor of Shodan, Terry Brosius, and she sounds freaking phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed every time Shodan reached out to the character, or even when you listen to one of its audio logs. Terry perfectly sold Shodan as an AI who slowly became psychotic and truly believed it had become a god. Her constant taunts and insults throughout the game were great, and Nightdive also implemented some clever use of surround sound every time Shodan spoke, making you think its voice was surrounding you. It was exhilarating and only pushed me further to take the AI down. The only issue I had with the audio, sometimes I just wanted to hear more of the music. Some levels, particularly later on in the game, became eerily quiet, and though this might have been the intention, often I thought there was a bug at play that prevented music from playing when it should have been. I don't know if that was actually true, but regardless, it's only a slight criticism. And if anything, leaving me wanting more of the music is probably a good thing. And finally, let's talk about bugs. Yes, like with any video game, System Shock does have some bugs, but throughout my playthrough, they were fairly minimal and I never encountered anything game-breaking or even a single crash. For some examples, as alluded to before, sometimes there can be weirdness in the game menus when using a controller, like the selections jumping around randomly and button presses not doing what they're supposed to do. When reloading saves where your character is being affected by hazardous material, your environmental protection pack mod often won't work and will need to be deactivated and reactivated again in order to kick in. And I swear sometimes when I used a meta patch, they just would not heal me properly, so I needed to activate a second one in order for healing to work. However, these are all relatively minor things and I'm sure they'll be fixed eventually. But by far the biggest bug I encountered is that no matter what changes I made to the in-game options, whether for gameplay, controls, or graphics, they reset every time I closed the game. So whenever I opened the game again, I had to change all of those settings back every single damn time. Changes to the in-game options would just never save for me. I'm not sure if everyone is going to encounter this issue, but I truly hope Nightdive fixes it ASAP. It was beyond annoying. So all in all, I absolutely enjoyed my time with System Shock. It's allowed me to play a modernized version of a cult classic game, which set the platform for some of my favorite titles of all time. And generally, I think Nightdive did a great job remaking the original from the ground up. Not everyone will agree with all of the decisions made when it comes to the art direction and the like, but for me, it still ran great, the combat was fun, and the emergent gameplay is exactly what you'd expect from a System Shock game. If you also are a fan of immersive sims, or have always wanted to give System Shock a try in 2023, I highly recommend picking up the remake. So, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourselves, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.